Hello everyone, I'm happy to share with you episode number 3 of the Louis Erard collaborations. And this time it's a little bit more underrated, but I would even say a more exceptional collaboration that we're going to talk about. And it's the one with Cédric Johner. Cedric, and again, a friend of over almost 25 years. I think I met him in 1997 the first time, so we're reaching 30 years. Doesn't make me younger, but it is what it is. And Cedric has had one of these, let's say, typical careers of independent watchmaking back in the 2000s. Today, everything is about independent watchmakers and indies, and there's a lot of traction on indies, and whoever comes with a new project, if it's qualitative, actually gets a lot of audience and has also this possibility today to reach collectors directly, which was not the case in the early 2000s. And people maybe don't know, but Cedric has been one of the biggest, if not the biggest, independents in the early 2000s. He co-founded with François-Paul Jaune and Max Busser of back then Harry Winston, Les Cadraniers de Genève, which is still the dial maker of Jaune. But he also had up to 35 people in his workshop. But then wrong decisions, wrong associations, bad investor, and he lost pretty much everything. Although he really was on a momentum and he had a very clear design language. He had this hexagonal shaped watch that he did entirely by hand called Abyss. And I've always liked Cedric. We traveled together. We went together at the early stage of 2000 when I was doing Jacquereau. Remember, we had trips in 2002, 3, 4, where we met regularly with events. And we became friends. And when I bumped into him a few years ago, 4 or 5, just after I started with Louis Erard, I told him one day we're going to do something together, but it's still a bit early because I need to create first, establish it first. Then about 3 years ago, I contacted him again. I said, Cedric, ready? And he said, for sure, with you anytime. And it's been a very interesting process because Cedric today only makes about 20 watches a year. Okay, that's it. He started again by just being himself in his workshop. Everything is done by hand. There's not one CNC machine, not one computer, nothing. Everything is done by hand in his workshop. And obviously there was no files or designs or whatever that he had in a computer. So we had to rebuild basically his signature Abyss case on the bezel of the Louis Erard, so that was very, very complex. And we decided that what I really like about this watch, it's human, it's personal, but it's also really the signature of Cedric's Abyss watch into a Louis Erard. We choose to do 2 colors because when we did the prototyping, we always do about 7, 8, 9, 10 colors because we want to be sure that we get the best. And sometimes when you do prototyping, well, the Pantone color or the reference or the galvanic treatment, well, what you have in terms of theory is not what you get in terms of reality. And for us, it's always important to be as large as possible. We do a lot of prototypes and then we choose the best. And in this particular case, we couldn't decide whether we should choose the mauve purple one or the blue. So we decided to do both. 2 editions of 178, the usual 178 together with Strong of Louis Erard. And there's a lot of attention to detail. If you look at the dial, it has this flanqué technique. It's a guilloché base. Obviously it's stamped, but still a guilloché base. And then it's filled with lacquer, which gives this incredible depth when you look at the dial. All the sub-dials of the regulators, or the hour and second, are concave, which is very hard to achieve because you can't stamp them. You have to machine them. We had to even redesign, imagine, all his figures because he didn't have a cliché. So his numerals, which are also very strong design identity, we had to redesign them because he did them by hand. So it took a bit of time in terms of design and obviously a lot of time in terms of prototyping. But then somehow, as Cedric does everything by hand, I wanted the final touch on the product. And we decided that he does each and every oscillating weight by hand. So he cuts out the piece of metal and he makes the oscillating weight by hand. And he makes this very special decor with a perloir, which is an instrument jeweler used, because he's obviously also a trained jeweler, to make these beads, if you like. And there's, I think, over 300 of them on each piece. And it takes several hours per oscillating weight just to do each and every one by hand. And I think this is the quintessence of what I want to do with Louis Erard and collaborations. Not just people, friends, emotions, but also a lot of attention to detail, very, very high-end quality products, and as much as possible with a final human touch. Because for me, the level of craftsmanship, the level of artisanship in each watch is very, very important.